We collect 1% on each side, 1% on the sender and 1% on the receiver, which is 2% total protocol revenue, right? We have done over $3.7 billion in transactions. As of today, it's exactly $4.1 billion since inception, which was July 2023. Our average daily volume is $23 million, and we have processed over 76,000 invoices. The total amount we raised initially was $33 million. And, that's the token market cap, as I said. It's more of a Web3 focused deck, which is 1.6 billion. And, the overall tokenomics are a bit different than what you would see out there. Most tokens, what they do is they do print to incentivize users to come to the protocol. We essentially let the token value be priced from the consumer rather than speculators. So we take the average settlement volume every single quarter and we burn it off at the end of the quarter. So instead of the trader going to the exchanges and deciding that Zeebu token should be worth $4.30, for example, the average fundamental pricing is done at the end of the quarter on the basis of what the consumer price is at. So after minting 5 billion tokens initially, we're at 4.2 billion now. So this is a more wholesome view of the protocol itself. The first participant is essentially, your average telco customer that gets onboarded with the platform simply because they have a utility that they want to consume, mainly to settle value and save money and cost of settling the value. And they are the ones that are, enabling natural demand for the platform, fundamentally supporting pricing, right? Along with that, there's the on-chain clearing houses. The validators facilitate the transaction by oracleizing the prices from end-to-end pools, looking at the invoices that are generated on the platform, fixing the price for the sender, right? Because no business out there wants to take balance sheet risk with volatile asset. So whenever invoice is generated from the counterparty and the sender accepts it, the price gets fixed for them for 15 minutes and they send Zeebu. So the validator makes that happen by verifying the invoice versus send value, and also oracleizing the prices from the automated market making tools. And along with that, we also have the on-chain liquidity providers. They're the ones that facilitate the gap capital of withdrawals from exchanges, on-ramp providers, and clearing houses, right? So the receiver should always receive value instantaneously, whether the protocol has received it or not. Because in a lot of cases, let's say Coinbase as an exchange, right? They might have a $20 million withdrawal limit, but we did $30 million in transactions today. That means $10 million of capital doesn't come back to the protocol and $10 million of capital doesn't get settled. So that $10 million value is factored by the on-chain liquidity providers. And most importantly, in order to incentivize ecosystem participants, that 2% in revenue that we collect is given back out to the deployers and the liquidity providers as yield, right? So 60 basis points go to the deployers, 80 basis points go to the liquidity providers from the 2%. So it's real world yield instead of, again, print, right? We collect fees in stablecoin, we give out yield in stablecoin as well, USDC. Now, the other factor that the validators improve per se is the TPS. So per validator, the TPS goes up by 1. We're aiming to have 300 validators up and active, and instead of a proof of work system, we have a proof of stake system, right? So for each million in Zeebu that are staked, you get 660,000 vCBU, and those vCBU augment the proof of stake network and the trust network for Zeebu protocol as a whole, enabling more transactions and making them quicker. So the way you would become a deployer is you would set up a on-chain clearinghouse. You would decentralize the network by doing so, obviously, because now instead of Zeebu as an institution running 1, 2, 3 nodes, there's 300 separate nodes. The risk of 300 nodes going down at the same time is very unlikely, but the risk of Zeebu as an entity going down is more likely, per se, right? And you stake Zeebu tokens to activate the node itself. Now, the way the priority indexing works for the Zeebu protocol is the top 75 nodes get the highest priority, and you essentially become a top 75 node by having more capital stakes under it. The whole point of this is to incentivize more people to be willing to secure the network itself. So Zeebu is reserving 75 nodes exclusively for node operators who participate early in Zeebu protocol itself. So the step number one to this would be to onboard, verify, and stake to claim your node. It is entirely self-custodial, so Zeebu protocol never takes custody of any funds, whether it's the customer, liquidity provider, or node operator. Obviously, we don't want to be sued as a company, so everyone has to do KYC, KYB, which is fairly a given. And you stake ZBU to claim your node. Step two is you earn yield with a minimum of 200,000 ZBU staked at the current price, and you step into the role of a deployer, which is the node runner themselves, or a delegator to someone else's node. Now, again, as a larger incentivization and to get more CPU tokens and with spread between the ecosystem itself, we're doing airdrop number one for node delegators. So let's say you came stake 200,000 in CPU, enable the node yourself. If you get 1 million CPU additionally delegated under you, you get 200,000 CPU unlocked and delegated directly to your node, and it would essentially augment the yield your node gets. And the airdrop number two that we're doing is all user activity will earn them ZIP points, which will give them ZBU airdrop on that box. So I don't know if you've heard of Eigenlayer. This is a concept that was essentially created by them. We're kind of just backpacking it. Now, this is a bit more on the airdrop itself. To be honest, most of you might not be interested in this. As I mentioned earlier, this is more of our Web3 deck. By participating in the invite-only program, top 75 nodes will be eligible to claim at the end of the campaign. Delegators will continue to yield even before the unlock. This essentially means you're earning yield with node activation from day one. From 100,000 to 200,000 plus ZBU tokens are directly airdropped to your node on the basis of how much you do on the protocol side as far as transaction processing, and additionally augmenting the protocol, whether that's bringing on more users, if you're a customer, bringing on more counterparties to transact with, etc. It's essentially an incentive model for every participant. Now, these are the node management obligations. Node managers essentially need to ensure that smooth operations of the Zeebu protocol continue, and for it they earn a yield. Through our delegated proof of stake, as a member of the node network, you contribute and make it. It's very simple. I mean, you might have heard of Bitcoin mining and the difficulties of Bitcoin mining. Ethereum used to be on a proof of work system as well. Eventually, they moved to proof of stake because it's much more scalable and easier for others to onboard, which that is what we have gone with. But the difference with us is we are not a chain. We don't have our own blockchain. We run most of our transactions through Base now, which is Coinbase's chain. We have our own proof of stake layer, specifically used in order to verify invoices, oracleize pricing from AMM pools, and ensure that we don't go into a situation where reconciliations and disputes happen between sender value and invoice value. And you essentially deploy a smart contract to extend the network for transaction processing. You allocate yield incentives to your delegates. So let's say you have 1 million ZBU. You're able to, let's say, process $1 million in transactions per day. For every ZBU that you get under your delegation pool, the more transactions you can process. But if you're earning, let's say, a 35% yield, you're able to give 20% to your delegators, keep 15% for yourself. So this is a bit more on the airdrop campaign that we're doing for the initial 75 node operators that come on board. The airdrop will occur at the end of the campaign. After achieving the top 75 out of 300, staking 200 ZBU and getting 1 million ZBU delegated under you, you'll be eligible for getting 200,000 ZBU rewarded specifically to your node. Now, the main reason to bring node operators on board is to support the market of the users that we're onboarding from telecom today and other industries that we will down the line. Three major drives of protocol support will be daily buys on demand for the telecom users. The burn protocol, as I mentioned earlier, letting the consumers define the pricing of the token itself. And market makers standing by to absorb liquidity for that gap capital. This is essentially like the on-chain liquidity providers. So this is the average APY expectation. Let's say we're currently projecting to do $14 billion in transactions over the next 8 to 12 months, which would equate to $280 million in protocol revenues. For example, from July 2023 until now, we've done $4.1 billion in transactions, which equated to about $87 million in protocol revenues. Until now, we have been collecting the revenues ourselves, but in order to scale, we're bringing on-chain service providers such as yourselves to set up nodes and provide liquidity. And from the $280 million in revenues that the protocol makes in stablecoin, we'll disperse 1.4% back to on-chain service providers that are partnering with the protocol, which, on the basis of the dilution and priority index of each node, could equate to anywhere between 2.75% to 45%. So this is a bit more on the initial incentive of airdrops, right? In stage one, you're looking at the kickback stage, up to 6% reward on every dollar staked, and set points accrued by delegators to form airdrop. Stage two, node activates and yield begins. The yield is 0.6% of all settlement, ranging between 25 to 45% annual percentage yield. And stage three is the preset requisite of the stage three airdrop is to be a top 75 node, have at least 1 million CPU delegated under you, and you could get up to 200,000 CPU airdrop directly to your node. This is the base differentiation between a delegator and the active nodes. Active nodes are able to get ZIP rewards, 6% referral fees of bringing on delegators, anywhere between 25 to 45% yield, and in stage one. And then in stage two, they get all of that plus 200,000 CPU airdrop. So next steps would be essentially to register for the Zeebu protocol, begin onboarding on KYC, QIB, set up your smart contract, stake upwards of 200,000 in CPU, start inviting delegation to your node with your invite code, earn up to 6% on every stake to your node, and acquire delegators of 1 million CPU or more, and unlock 200,000 CPU airdrop by the end of it, which could equate to 90 days, equivalent to $900,000. Thank you. Take any questions now.
Questions?
Yep.
So sorry, just from a regulatory standpoint, is Zeebu considered a utility token or
Yes.
it's a utility token?
Compared to any others out there, yes, absolutely. I mean, we have $23 million in consumptive volume on a daily basis, right? There's more people going out there to buy the token to consume consume the utility against it than to speculate on per se. If you look at Ripple, for example, XRP, they actually either lost it entirely. Their organic volume on a daily basis right now, after about 10 plus years of operations, is $18 to $20 million per day.
How should investors think about the value of Zeebu as an economic asset and some real assets? Like, we'll go back and look at what happened to Definity. They went to the moon and then came back.
Yeah.
What sets Zeebu apart from, say, the Definity project?
Right.
Where you had a bunch of applications that have over 7 million blocks and then printed, right? So just curious, A, what drives that value? A, what differentiates you? And B, are there floors or thresholds that prevent raise capital goes in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say the value is driven mostly through consumer activity, right? So every single quarter, we take the average settlement value on the platform, whether that's $100,000 to $100 million. At the end of the quarter, we burn off that settlement value equivalent of tokens, right? So each transaction that happens, the receiver always receives stablecoin, right? Whenever the stablecoin and ZBU swap on remittance, the CBU goes to a burn pool. And at the end of the quarter, the collected CBU, deducting the settlement value, gets burnt off. So we could be, based on the price appreciation or depreciation on a quarterly basis, we could be looking at anywhere between, let's say, a 1% burn to 100% burn of the collected CBU cap, right? And additionally, we don't mint any more tokens. The biggest problem with most protocols out there is they keep minting tokens, which is a core economic principle of inflation, right? They keep inflating the market cap and handing out free tokens without any economic or financial activity. And eventually what happens is there are too many tokens out there versus the amount of demand and value against it. So in our case, we have been focused on letting the consumer price the token rather than the investor price it. Because the consumer is the one who has to provide organic buy-side demand on a daily basis.
And you shut off the supply.
Yes, we don't mint any more tokens. So we mint 5 billion initially. We're at 4.2 billion right now. And before you ask what happens if all the tokens get burnt off, we cap it at 100 million tokens. So if the token supply somehow ever gets to 100 million, which it's unlikely to, the burn protocol shuts down. Unless we onboard, eventually, if the foundation allows to onboard other industries, oil and gas, import, export, other industries where there's a supply chain / remittance gap, we might mint more tokens to support, the economic activity there. But that would also essentially mean that there's more buy-side demand on a daily basis. But this would be entirely run through the DAO and the foundation, whether Zeebu is able to onboard more payment platforms on top of it.
That could be a different token.
No, it would continue to be CBU. Yeah, it would continue to be the CBU. The Zeebu protocol itself is essentially a liquidity engine run through the foundation, and other companies are able to build on top of it to enable the same exact utility in other industries, if not other utilities as well. Anyone else?
So what industry is Zeebu
At the macro level, telecom industry. At the micro level, specifically wholesale voice, SMS, and data providers. And most of our clients are essentially providing, roaming data to T1 telecoms. So let's say AT&T, Etisalat, STC, right? They don't manage their international wholesale business themselves. They essentially outsource it to businesses, and these are the businesses that we're onboarding, mostly because they have low margins and high, either cost of capital or cost of payment. So we're essentially just streamlining their business operations and cost of selling. Yeah.
But you're not limited just to telecom. I can apply this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not limited to telco. I've spoken about this quite a bit in the past. This essentially is a copy and paste solution, depending on the platform itself. Now, our platform is somewhat, from a UI perspective, is designed for telco because the way our invoices are generated and the way we sell value, the units per se are designed for telcos because eventually we also want to go into building switching solutions for these guys to make the reconciliation and dispute resolution process even smoother. But it is a copy and paste solution on the liquidity engine side, where any payments or settlement startup could build on top of it.
And can you talk about why you started in the telecom space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent most of my time between, let's say, I'm fairly young, so I don't have a lot of experience. I started really working in 2018 for my family office and private equity firm based out of Dallas, who's also a Zeebu investor now, Pirami Capital. Underwriting different deals, anywhere from seed stage to Series B. And throughout that time, I saw a lot of payment startups. And even if I didn't see payment startups, I saw companies that were struggling with payments. Eventually in 2020, I got into crypto just on an investment basis because I was managing my own securities portfolio, and we all know what the securities market looked like after March. But that also meant Bitcoin was devalued, trading around $3,000. So I wanted to buy some, right? Just on the basis of what people were telling me. But I'm a fundamentally driven person, so I looked at the white paper, I looked at the core technology, and Bitcoin was essentially created for payments and store value. But even doing Bitcoin transactions was, expensive and cumbersome. It still is today. Bitcoin transactions can get stuck for like a day or two at a time. Parallel to this, as I mentioned, my family owns a telecom wholesale provider, right? And I knew the struggles that our company was, looking at the time. Wherein settlements cross borders were very, very difficult, especially in emerging markets. If you look at Ethiopia, for example, there is no dollar liquidity against the Ethiopian beer. And there's not much you can do about it. If you have $10, $15 million sitting there, you're just stuck with Ethiopian beer depreciating year over year, right? So instead, what we do is we set up some local liquidity pairs with CBU token. That was the largest need for a token of our own, because there's no cost of procurement. So we set up localized liquidity pairs with CBU token and any local currency, providing almost instantaneous on-ramps at a very, very low cost. And that's kind of how I came up with Zeebu as a platform. Yeah.
Is there a risk that government regulation could see the massive effect, disruptive effect, and do something to kill the whole process?
So the simple answer is yes. I think there's a pretty massive curve around that, because if you look at Web3, crypto, blockchain as an industry, regulatory review, especially in the United States, the entire industry is kind of facing that risk, right? If you look at the recent Uniswap case, though, Uniswap is highly decentralized. They got litigated against for multiple reasons, but they did pretty well to get out of it because they didn't actually do anything about it. Putting it simply, right? Zeebu as a company on the payment side, we're regulated. We have vast licensing out of Europe. We have registrations in multiple African countries. We're working through getting our VAR licensing in EGM. We're also working on getting Bermuda licensing, right? So on the payment side, we're covered. On the digital asset side, I think Zeebu faces as much lack of clarity as any other asset out there. But in our case, we have a lot of organic consumption, and we're actually able to make the utility argument versus the securities argument, right? So if you're looking at the Howey test, obviously I won't say we're not a security, right? That's for the SEC and the regulatory bodies to decide. My argument simply would be we have a lot more utility-based consumption than speculation around the token, right? Meaning that we have customers out there that are buying the token whether it's going up, down, or sideways, simply because they want to consume the utility.
And it's supported by business transaction.
Hmm?
So you're supporting business transaction.
Yes, exactly.
I wouldn't want to demonstrate my ignorance of the field. Like railroads, they'll have to agree to a standard, like railroads. Is there a problem or a process by which you have to get a critical mass of telcos to sign up to this? And you're already there? You give a sense of what I'm asking.
So is this more regarding this?
There are independent telcos all over the world.
Yeah.
Can you do them one at a time? You're talking about international settlements. And so, do all or a critical mass of telcos have to be on board before this becomes... It's like railroads. You can't have every railroad. See what I'm saying?
Right.
What percentage do you need to have a critical mass, and are you already there?
So we have 105 institutional clients right now, right? We started with 9. The reason the structure is created the way it is right now is simply because I actually started doing a POC between 2020 to 2022 between some of the carriers that we were closely working with as Big Group on just doing stablecoin transactions, so USDT, right? So we found out a set of problems in that time, and we used those problems to create solutions around and create this new platform. Now, those 9 telcos started transacting using USDT. Number one problem they found was, you're a telecom company, you have no idea where to buy USDT. Once you figure it out, it's, a rather cumbersome process, doing KYC, KYB, setting up your own wallet. And then the cost basis of the transaction is they take about, 125 or 150 basis point fee for the transaction. Plus, if you're in an emerging market like India, for example, where one USDT is $1.09, right? So, which is a pretty high procurement cost just for a stable, right? Now comes custody. Custodial and non-custodial solutions are very, very expensive, such as Fireblocks, BigDo, etc. We partner with Fireblocks and provide non-custodial services, but we're able to afford it because our cost basis is spread over 105 institutions. If you're a single company getting the solution, your cost basis is like 75,000 to 150,000, which doesn't make any sense to these Web2 businesses because they look at it as paying 75,000 to 150,000 for bank accounts, right? And an alternative to this would be using a wallet like MetaMask, a Trust Wallet, Coinbase Wallet, etc., which wouldn't make a lot of sense doing because you can't just keep $5-6 million in working capital with a finance guy in a blockchain wallet. It could get stolen, right? Additionally, there's also fraud prevention. There's also doing on-chain analytics for the counterparties' wallets, right? Number of problems that we found solutions to and aggregated within the Zeebu platform. And our first 9 customers are the ones that tested on these problems and helped us build the platform itself. Now, once we onboarded the first 9 customers, it's kind of a snowball effect. They naturally start onboarding their counterparties, which is what our loyalty system is built around, right? So we incentivize them, we lower their effective cost basis at the end of the month. Let's say we collect 2% every single day, right? At the end of the month, we look at the couple things that they did, such as onboard counterparties on the platform, and we give them some of the loyalty back in CPU token. So, coming back to you, it's like what percentage of the mass do we need to onboard in order to make the platform work? It's generally, on average, it's 5 counterparties per user that we need. That's what we've seen, right? Our customers, that's essentially what our customers have told us. Once they got 4 to 5 counterparties onto the platform, they were effectively using it.
All right, thank you, Raj. Please give him a round of applause.